Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm going to talk very quickly in the next few minutes here about how do we actually make this practical and actually make it happen within organizations. So yes, it's about AI, but at the same time, it's about making it real and making it, delivering results, right? So, okay. So my name is Saurabh Shah. I'm a part of IBM Services. And what I'm going to do is just kind of take you guys through the opportunity from an AI perspective. Talk a little bit about what is AI, just so that we are aligned in terms of when I say AI versus how you look at AI. And then we'll kind of go into the crux of the discussion, which is around the practical steps to get AI real in the organization. So let's take a look at the opportunity, right? From a AI perspective, AI is already delivering significant business results across the globe, across many industries. If there's anybody who believes AI is in its infancy, hopefully the numbers over here will kind of help mitigate some of those doubts. But if you go across, whether it's which part of the world, which industry you're talking about, there's significant value being generated by AI. There's a lot of studies out there, economic studies in terms of the impact of AI by 2030. McKinsey's done some of them. And the expected impact on GDP is going to be multiples of the impact on GDP by some of the other major shifts in technology. So AI is real, AI is happening. And if you've not started working on it, hopefully this slide will give you a little more motivation to look at it, right? So if you look at this side, this rectangle over here, last year, IBM did a study and a survey of around 5,000 C-level executives around the world. This is across 18 different industries and 19 different business domains to look at, how are they, when they talk about AI or when they are considering AI, what is their perspective. The important number really to look at is this one over here, that all the organizations that said they were implementing, operating, or optimizing their AI, 73% of them were outperformers. And when I say outperformers, this is really about them leading in their specific industry in terms of their financial results, in terms of their results to the street, et cetera. So think about that, right? 73% of them who are in this, who came and said they are implementing, operating, or optimizing the AI, are delivering better results to their organization. So AI is real. AI is delivering business results, and you really need to be able to get good at implementing and managing your AI. So hopefully that convinces you guys that AI is important. And in terms of AI, just a quick level setting. Narrow AI, this is really around deep learning models, single modal, single domain, and usually designed to solve very specific business problems. You need a lot of data. I think there was a lot of conversation going on earlier around data, and I'll speak to it a little bit as well. But a lot of data is needed to train these models, right? Because that's the nature of those models. Broad AI, when we talk about broad AI, we are talking about you not only have the learning capabilities, but you also now have the ability to reason with these things, so with the systems. When we talk about broad AI, we are talking about multiple domains. We are talking about multiple models, multimodals, and also the ability to train the AI much, much faster as opposed to just the narrow AI. So there's significant improvements in that space as well. And then general AI, I would say this is what Elon Musk is most scared about. He talks about, hey, this is really not the right thing, and all that stuff. But this is where it gets really human in its nature, in terms of being able to be cross-domain, and being able to learn and reason across multiple domains. This is what we are calling within IBM the neuro AI phase in terms of the evolution of AI. We are still decades away from it, Right now, as you can see, we are kind of here starting to explore broad AI and implement broad AI in a number of organizations. So to bring that broad concept of AI down into how it manifests itself within organization, we kind of put it into three simple buckets, right? One is AI can be used to engage with people. Now, these could be your internal employees, this could be external customers, or it could be your partners or vendors that you do business with. The ability of AI to interact and reason has really changed the way humans interact with systems. And you and I, whether we know it or no, are constantly interacting with AI on a day-to-day basis today. So engaging is one way of using AI. Discover, this I think is the epitome of AI. What Discover helps you do is two things. One is you can take huge amounts of data and identify connections between those disparate sources very quickly and give you new insights that it's almost impossible for humans to, even the smartest humans to be able to draw those connections. The other thing that Discover does, so that's at the big picture level, but also from a Discover perspective, the thing it does is you are able to, at a tactical level, there's a ton of data within organizations where data is stuck in their documents, data is stuck in their emails, data is stuck just preventing them from doing something better. And that's the other thing that AI can help with. It's not only the discover the broad swaths of relationships, but also kind of very tactically go and improve some processes, et cetera, through this. And finally, from an AI perspective, application perspective, it's when AI can help you start making decisions. So today, AI is already helping folks make better decisions, right? So algorithms give you recommendations, confidence-based approach to kind of identify what might be a good next step over here or decision. But it's a question of time as to when does AI actually start making the decision, right? To be able to get there, there needs to be a level of trust that we need to develop within that AI system. That trust will come with multiple different things. You need to make sure that you're managing bias in those decisions. There's transparency in those decisions and auditability in those decisions, right? So how did AI make that decision and everything else? I was just reading an article just earlier today which talked about the fact that deep neural networks are great, but the thing is how deep neural networks actually develop those relationships and patterns is extremely difficult and really not transparent by itself. So if you had more transparency in understanding those deep neural networks and how those connections are made, you'd have better ability to fine-tune these models to get to better decisions and transparency in those. So moving on, taking those three big buckets of how AI actually helps manifests itself in organizations, it's really not just about AI, right? Like there's a ton of convergence happening right now in the industry. There's AI right here, there's automation, there's a lot of blockchain going on, there's IoT going on, and of course we have cloud where no organization now is like private cloud or public cloud or hybrid cloud. It's all multi-cloud now. So it really boils down to how do you take all of these technologies, put it all together, and create something which is known as an intelligent workflow, right? So with data at its heart, you can take all of these different technologies, bring them together to deliver business results. So just something I wanted to kind of lay the foundation in terms of, when I talk of AI, it's not just about the AI parts of it and the different ways it shows up, but also about intelligent workflows, because that's actually where you start delivering value to the business, because AI by itself can be a nice experiment unless it does that, right? So quickly going into the crux of the conversation, which is around how do you become successful at this, right? Over the last 2 days, you guys have probably seen many models of, how do you do this, what makes AI successful. It's pretty simple, and I think none of it is really rocket science, if you will. You need to have your strategy, and we'll go into each one of these in the next few minutes here. You need your data, You need to execute well and change, right? It's no different from projects that you probably did in, whenever in the 1990s or the 2000s, right? So what's different about AI? The reason AI is difficult is simply because AI is different. AI can be disruptive within organizations. AI can impact organizations in ways that you probably don't think about when you're just doing these small projects or rogue innovation within the organization. So that's the thing that really makes AI different. I was talking to the chief. I think his title is interesting, Chief Administrative Officer of a large firm. He was telling me about the fact that they are looking to kind of put together a strategy around automation and AI, and I was like, that's great, like, let's talk about it. So what do you want out of it? And the next sentence really threw me off. His thing is, well, I already have 200 bots out there doing some level of automation and AI. I'm like, okay, well, you don't have a strategy, but you have 200 of these running around the organization, right? And that's a reality. So before you get 200 Autobots going around the organization, think about, make sure you kind of keep these guys under control, right? So very, very, very important to make sure that you kind of start off right. So from a strategy perspective, it's pretty straightforward, right? Like, and the previous speaker kind of alluded to this as well a little bit, is don't forget the why, right? Like, you have to know why you're doing whatever it is that you're doing with your AI project, right? Means make sure that there is business value, there's clarity on what you're going to deliver at the end of it, and why you're delivering that value. And improving what becomes important is make sure that as part of that, there is a total transparency from the top to bottom in terms of making sure that you are actually going to deliver something that you have executive sponsorship for, right? Because that becomes important. Once you have that, it kind of opens up your ability to get the right resources from a financial, business, and technology perspective available to you. When we did that survey last year, when we talked to them, customer satisfaction and retention, so still customer-centric strategies are driving a lot of the investments in AI from a C-suite perspective. But in practice, when I go out and talk to a lot of the clients, a lot of them are also focused on just optimization and cost reduction, right? That is also a big part of the thing. But this kind of customer, and this is, I think, is more in line with where a lot of the innovation is happening or the implementations are happening right now. So the second is around data. We can't speak enough about how important data is to AI, right? Like we've probably heard about it. So the only thing I would like to add to that is make data critical to your strategy, right? So don't have an AI, don't have any center of excellence, don't have anything without making sure data is being managed, controlled, and owned by the organization in a proper way. So while you do that, and while you kind of put that in place, the important thing to remember, going back to the first few slides where I talked about innovation and the fact that if you don't start your AI journey, you're probably going to be left behind guys who are already outperformers, right? You don't have to avoid AI just because you don't have usable data. There's a lot of ways that you can work around that, and I'll speak to it on the next slide. It's not your internal data alone that you should look at. You really need to expand your strategy, think differently and innovatively to say, okay, how do I start my AI journey? What's important to me? And get going on there. And data privacy, I think, always critical, especially with GDPR, with California getting California's version of it, and all of those things. It's extremely critical to make sure that you're meeting the data privacy requirements, et cetera. So, going to the example, right, I'll just speak to one over here. I might, given the time constraints here. But if we were working with this trucking company, trucking, if anybody has any experience in that, it's a very low margin business, right? And this company basically said, hey, we've maximized the business. We are We are top performers in what we do, but we need to generate new revenue, and this is what we do, right? So like, how do you do that? So we worked with them, and when we came up with ideas, one of the key ideas we came up with was, you know your location, where every truck is at every second of the day, better than anything else, right? I mean, you might have all other kinds of data problems, but one thing you're really good at is tracking your asset down. So what we did with them is we said, okay, let's take that one piece of data, combine it with external data. We worked with weather data, we worked with local events data, we worked with local demographic data, and said, based on where your truck is, based on the data for that region, maybe we can put advertisements on your trucks, right? So now, as a result of that, they basically have a new revenue source that they didn't have before. And they're basically getting more out of those assets, which are running the streets of the country, right? So that's the kind of innovation. So 5, okay. That's the kind of innovation that we are talking about when it comes to, think outside the box in terms of getting, working with your data. The next thing, the next session, what do you call it? The next thing to focus on in terms of this is execution, right? What we see in the marketplace is a lot of companies start AI, they do proof of concepts, they do pilots, and then pretty much stop there, right? Like very few companies are able to get into the far right of that scale I shared earlier. And what we call that is basically AI tourism, right? Like they touch it, they feel it, but then they kind of step back and kind of move away from it. The reason for that is really a few things. And it goes back to the strategy part. There's no real clarity on why they are doing it, right? So these AI pilots, the 200 bots I spoke about, and all those things, there was no clarity on why those were implemented or developed, and what are they going to do next with it. The second thing around these failed projects is there was no sponsorship for them. Like, no C-level executive. It kind of it reached the C-level's desk after the fact, and he's like, wait a second, what's happening over here, right? Because AI is disruptive, as I mentioned earlier. AI will require changes in the process. AI is going to require changes in the organization. So make sure that you have the C-level sponsorship you need. And then the final thing is a lot of times there's a lot of innovation happening out there within the AI space. A lot of small startups, with some awesome solutions, but sometimes they're not able to scale. So whoever is your vendor of choice, make sure that they are going to be able to be with you 18 months, 24 months from now, and not only kind of ride the wave with you in terms of that, right? So very, very important to be able to think execution from an end-to-end perspective. In the interest of time, I'm not going to talk about it, but these are very some awesome examples in terms of how do you make and actually deliver value to an organization, right? So take a look at those once you get the slides, but some of these are delivering like huge 8, 10, 8-digit benefits to their organizations. The final thing I'll talk about is change. From a change perspective, there's three main categories. I forgot to write the third one here. One is change. Finding the right people to deliver AI solutions is extremely tough, right? If you write, finding the right data scientists, finding the right, change management people itself, those are extremely difficult to find. You have to, it's not only looking outside, so come up with a strategy of identifying those skills sometimes internally maybe, as opposed to always looking outside. You may have to upskill your teams, etc. The second thing around change management is the fact that your workforce is going to change. Right now, it's all humans assisted by AI. Pretty soon, whether you like it or no, it's going to be maybe in the next 5, 7 years, you're going to look at a 50-50 thing where there's going to be a digital worker doing a lot of the stuff, and then you're going to have a human augmenting or complementing those people, right? The digital worker. That's the reality, and you need to start training your humans right now around this in terms of saying, how are you going to get ready? How are you going to get skilled for your new job descriptions etc. And then the third thing about change is really around adoption. None of your projects are going to be successful unless and until there's people who actually log on to your projects, use the output of it, and actually deliver results. So drive adoption requires change. You need to make sure that people go and actually use this, and that goes back to the point about sponsorship and making sure you have the executives who are committed to using this as a capability to drive business results. So with that, I hopefully have done a good job on managing the time.
Right on time, actually.
Oh, okay.
So maybe one question. We'll get one question in for you.
Sure. Good.
So, depending on the maturity in your company, and I'm talking about a big company, so tens of thousands of people, multiple business lines, would you prefer a setup which is centralized, kick-started, or decentralized?
So we've done it multiple different ways, right? It's always good to have central visibility, but maybe you start within a line of business, right? So that's what we are doing with one of our clients today, quite a few of our clients today, actually, where we make sure that that project is not lost in the line of business. Because what will happen is once that's available, once that grows and becomes successful, the way to really deliver value to the organization is taking it across the other lines of business, if it applies, right? So, very, very important. So start small, start within the line of business, but then be ready to scale it and have that support. So.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. We're out of time.